Hello. So today we're going to continue expanding on the topic of self-worth, and I just wanted to share another part of my process. And when I started listening to Brene Brown and reading her work, I was like, man, I've always been naturally vulnerable and worn my heart on my sleeve, been an open book. Like, these are the things people would describe me as, and I would describe myself. And I'm like, if you ask me a question, I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm going to tell you all of it. And even if it made people severely uncomfortable or, noticeably like shell-shocked and tongue-tied, I'm like, oh, well, that's my life. Sorry. My whole life. And recently, especially in the last 4 years, it's just like an inappropriate conversation in and of itself. So, like, you're going to ask me, oh, what's your tattoo about? Well, I'm going to tell you what my tattoo is about. It's about domestic abuse, okay? And if you're going to say, oh, you raise your kids on your own? Yeah, where's that? Well, I'm going to tell you what happened to him, okay? So he took his own life, and blah, 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 or whatever. So it's just, I just am like, bleh. I definitely have had a tendency to be a word vomiter, and what I most recently coined as emotionally whoring myself out. And I did it under the umbrella of like, I'm being vulnerable and I'm being real and authentic and all this stuff. And I really didn't get frustrated when people either didn't match it or didn't receive it well. I didn't really care. I wasn't doing it for shock factor. I wasn't doing it for some sort of response. I was just doing it because that's what I've always done. And it's like, you ask me a question, I don't know how to filter that. But what I've heard a lot of times from other people who do this is that they're like, they didn't really respond well, or they judged me afterwards, or this or that. And I'm like, oh. And then I thought about myself, and I'm like, I go deep with people. I get very deep very quickly, but that isn't always reciprocated. And so I was just pondering that, like, why, I wonder. And I realized, I talk a lot about friendships and relationships and how to build adult connections, especially just, platonic friendships. I hear a lot of stay-at-home moms or just moms that have young kids and stuff. They're like, it's so hard to make friends. And I'm like, I can help you with that. So I have these different theories and steps that I, recommend people take. And when I got to one of these, I'm like, why is it so easy for me to go deep, but other people can't go deep with me? And it's what I realized was when I do that, when I emotionally whore myself out, whether this is on a date or, with a new friend, it's like, whoa, they have so much to process now that they just received from me. It's very difficult to try to come back with something that matches that level of vulnerability, for lack of a better term, right off the bat, and it's not really appropriate to do that right at the beginning unless there was like a mutual, connection on grief or mental illness or something like that. Like if I met somebody else who has experienced suicide, then obviously that's appropriate to share and empathize and give comfort. But if it's just somebody, who's a mom, and I'm like, I got kids, I've also dealt with mental illness and suicide and being a wife of a pastor and being in a domestic abuse situation, that's just like, it's like a lot, all at once. And not to say that I'm too much or my experiences have been too much or anything like that, or my life is full of baggage. I did at one point think of myself that way, but I do not anymore. It's all created who I am today and helped me learn and become the person I am today. And so I appreciate that and I embrace it. However, there is a tactful way to go about holding space, creating space for people to move into, and then sharing different levels of vulnerability as the relationship builds. So anyways, all of that to say, the emotional whoring stemmed from a fear of not being accepted for who I am. So I wanted to just go bleh this is everything bad that's happened to me ever in my entire life. Can you handle it? Can I trust you? You know, back to that "are you my mother" thing. Like, here's the worst of me. How do you feel about that? Can you still take it? Can you be interested in me? Do you want to hang out with me? Do you still think I'm cool? Whatever. And so once I realized that was actually rooted in insecurity about my story, my life, the choices I've made, and you know, what I carry today, my responsibilities, I was like, whoa, I need a perspective change here. And that's when I started to accept who I am and my story and what's happened, and fully embrace it and love myself there. I met myself there again, got aligned here, listened to my inner child, paid attention to that insecurity, and committed to listening and creating a safe space for myself there. And so immediately, I didn't need to do that with people. I would meet new people, I would talk to my old friends, and I didn't need to like tell them all the worst stuff that happened, and these are the terrible thoughts I had, and this is all the outbursts I had, and I failed here, and I didn't have to do that because I'm handling it here. And so, not in a disingenuous way where I'm not presenting any of my flaws or mistakes or anything like that, because they are obvious, and I definitely talk about those with my friends, but there's a difference in matching vulnerability in a calm and secure place rather than from an insecure neediness, like, I'm going to tell you everything really fast so I can hurry up and figure out if I can trust you or not. So I'm just wondering, has anybody else experienced that kind of, either someone emotionally whoring out on you and just kind of like, blah, and you're like, ah, or do you do that to other people? And have you spent some time and paid attention to where that comes from and why you might do that? Let me know in the comments. See ya.